All right, we're up. And I don't even know who is starting soft this time.
Oh, right. We didn't ever
You are, Michelle. I think you said you were going to introduce us. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't, but that's okay. We're totally we'll roll with that. So welcome everybody to Biz Happy Hour. I am Michelle Voss, and I'm your visibility expert. And what I do is really help women become who their business actually needs them to be through their business building and through branding. So you can just check out more at my website when we no, it's not my website. Actually, we're going to be focusing on having you guys check us out on our website, our Biz Happy Hour website. It's pretty fun. So anyway, sorry, random. So welcome, Angela. Angela, take a moment.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Angela Johnson at angelajohnson.com. And also, connect with us on bizhappyhour.com/connect. But what I do is I'm a business coach and a strategist. I use a lot of intuition in marketing. I love marketing. I'm one of those weirdos that loves marketing and loves empowering people to get their message out there in really authentic ways. And so I combine the messaging and the perfect words with the marketing of how to share your gifts with the world, bring those two things together, and many other things, but that's really the focus of my business. And I'm super happy to be with you guys. I was just mentioning to these guys earlier that we've been doing these episodes since February, and just looking back through past episodes of it's really cool that we're in this conversation of real talk behind the scenes of, behind all the six-figure formulas and all that stuff that we see online. And so I'm just really happy to be here with you all.
Yeah.
Chris.
Awesome. I am Chris Prochaska of Heart and Soul Speaking, and I also am an intuitive consultant and a counselor. I used to be a a licensed therapist, and now I do more counseling and therapeutic work in the context of intuitive consulting, especially around communication. And I'm really passionate and getting very clear that what I really, really want to do in the world is help people that have a service-based business who maybe don't have that clinical background to really be able to offer the deepest work that they can with their clients and to be in alignment with that. So really know who they are, what their gifts are, what the challenges are, the mindset that takes, and then how to share that in the world in a way that has integrity and that is really in alignment with the different forms of coaching, consulting, and counseling, and knowing the difference, and then being able to share that in a really powerful way. So, yeah.
Awesome. And so I just wanted to, share a little bit what I was going to do about why we even started this group. And that really was to start the conversation. We started as a mastermind group, and we just found ourselves being so engaged with, well, not only just what was up with us, but also what's kind of happening with our clients or just the industry or whatever it is. And we just would find really cool shit to talk about. So we were like, this is kind of not really being out there. You'll know right away that this is not an upsell stuff. We are just literally creating space for really cool stuff to happen, whatever that might be. And so we just create space once a month. And so we're happy to have you here. And I just want to welcome Kim as she joined us, and the others that are on their way. I feel them actually typing right now. So I don't know, Chris or Angela, do you want to kick us off? We've got three really cool different topics. See, I told you somebody was typing. Three really cool topics to dive into that I think will be thought-provoking, to say the least. So who feels like they want to start?
Angela, you should go.
I should go? Okay.
Angela got volunteered.
Things off tonight.
Hey, before you go, Angela, there's just everybody know that at the bottom of this screen below our faces, there's the chat, and you can hover over that and click on it, and you'll see that there's a chat box on the side. So please, you're muted, but you can chat over there. Comment, please. That's one of the best parts of this. Ask questions. dial in that way. And then that way we can have the dialogue, not just between the three of us, but that you're a part of that too.
Well, and you can disagree with us too.
Yeah,
We want the conversation. Like if you say, if we say something that's horseshit, then we want to hear from you,
Yeah.
And so definitely some of our, like my favorite part of this is seeing the chat box just jump, alive with who you are. Because this is really a conversation. It's not just about watching the three of us. So thanks for having that logistical detail.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like I actually just want to get everyone just to take a breath. And so if you're listening to this recording months later, then just take this moment, take a breath. Expand your energy out bigger so that you can be more present and have more of you available for this conversation. Because I feel like tonight we've got three really hot topics. And the topic that I want to bring to the surface is really the conversation about when do you lean in versus push? Because I had some really big ahas the last couple of weeks of where I have been so afraid to commit because the last time I assigned myself with that energy of committing, I burned myself out. And it was actually, triggered by a conversation, triggered in a good way, sparked with a conversation with a colleague of mine where she was given advice of, you know what, you just need to push yourself. You need to get to that edge of burnout to see what you're really made of. And we were talking about this because it's like when someone tells us something like that, I'm like, you have no idea who you are saying that to.
Yes.
Like, I am not going to do that because been there, done that, and it's bullshit. But then here's, and I believe that there's truth in all things. And especially when there's like the resistance that goes automatically up of like, no, you're wrong, I'm right. Like, you don't know who you're talking to. I know there's some truth in there that if I am willing to be present with it, there's something that can unlock in huge ways. And that's happened. And so this really got me to the space of when do you lean in because you are that committed that there is no plan B? And when does that energy turn into push energy, like pushing that boulder up the freaking mountain? But I've committed. I've got to be in integrity. I've got to do this, and I can't back down, and la 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 la. Instead of like, when is it time to surrender? And I was actually on a conversation with a client this week, and she said, I cannot push the river. Amen, sister. Amen. And so I've just been really looking at that of like, where am I committed? And we hear these phrases like, you've got to want it bad enough. And how you do anything is how you do everything. And it goes back to that thought, in my belief, of there is truth in all things. But when those statements are usually shared, it's with an energy of shaming someone into pushing themselves. Like, how you do anything is how you do everything. So basically, if you suck here, you suck everywhere else. When it's like, well, actually, what if that's a good thing? And so I think there's truth in that. And so I've just been playing around with this energy of seeing like what I'm committed to are my current results. And there's a truth moment that happens of taking a loving and honest, but I call it the come to Jesus conversation of like, oh, this is not continuing. I'm drawing the line in the sand, and my current results are what I'm committed to. And so I started looking at that like with my health. I'm like, well, I'm committed to being 50 pounds overweight. And like, and being able to say that, and not from a place of judgment, but from a place of, wow, like I'm a really powerful creator. And so there's something about that is totally fine with me. And when am I just going to love that even more? And I've actually done so much work around my body, stuff that actually doesn't have the same charge it used to. But I've just been looking at like, where I've been letting myself off the hook. And the biggest reason for that, and I can like feel this emotion come up, is because when I have pushed myself, it has been pushing. And I'm afraid of kind of that line, that fine line of like leaning in and saying, I'm doing this. No matter what, like I'm doing this, but I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm not attached to the way it looks, and I'm not attached to the pace or the time it takes. And I think that's the difference between leaning and pushing. But we're just really taking a look at like, what are my commitments and where am I choosing to lean in? And another conversation, then I'll shut up and turn it over to you guys. Like along with this is it's time to raise my standards. And the first time this was mentioned by a friend and a mentor of mine was like, oh, what does that mean for me? And it's like, where I'm letting myself off the hook is where I'm letting my clients off the hook. It's where I'm letting my marriage off the hook. It's where I'm letting the relationship with my body and my health off the hook. It's like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's fine. And then years later, that it's fine compounds to be something that's so out of alignment, if you want to use the words, out of integrity with who you are, with who I am. It's like, how did that happen? And it's like being so afraid of the push that I didn't even lean in. Because if I leaned in and it turned into push energy and like working my ass off, like I know I could do, there's a fear that I don't know if I would recover. Like, I don't know if I would make my way back. And that's where the emotion comes in. It's like, I've been so afraid of going back to that place of damn near shutting down in really unhealthy ways because I was so committed to the push that I've been avoiding any sort of leaning in. Like the second it gets hard, I'm really good at like, I'll just visualize my way out of this. I will just coach myself out of any discomfort. And it's like, where is that leaning in really powerful? And so I'm just playing with that energy of when it turns to push, am I okay to be there? Knowing that that's what's happening, being conscious of it. So that's my monologue for the evening. I'm now done.
Awesome. Really good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just love right off the bat. I love that you really kind of differentiating the, pushing and leaning in, right? Because I think there is a distinction, right? There is a distinction that when it gets hard, it doesn't mean that you automatically, you won't go the other way.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when something gets hard, then that, and I think the three of us have talked about this a lot, that, that is a sign, right? That there's something else here, right? Like, what else needs to maneuver? And having our past experiences define that, right? I mean, you've been in a situation where it just wiped you out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, your leaning in is going to be scarier. Mm-hmm. I'm at a place where I have to lean in more because I've always been like, ooh, let's just follow this. Ooh, let's follow and I just follow my way into the next thing I go. And I actually like it and it works. And the muscle of leaning in and getting things done when you say you need to get them done and things like that is a muscle that needs attentive, right? Need to build it to feel to feel comfortable in that space and not feel like it's going to knock you out. Yeah.
Well, I think, one thing with that, and then Chris, I want to hand it to you, is like, this really hit me in a very, very real and simple way, is I'm taking Italian. It's something I've always wanted to do. And I'm challenging myself to do something that scares the shit out of me every year. So taking Italian and taking singing lessons, like my secret's out, like I start next week. And I'm like, holy shit, what am I doing? But there was this moment sitting in my Italian class and going, I want to run out of this room crying because I have no idea what the hell they're saying. And so is this a time to lean in? Or is this a time that I'm pushing? And it was because I've been in this conversation, right? And it was just like, well, and it was again that mirror of like, wow, whenever I felt like things are hard, like I'm really good at like, oh, we'll just kind of patch it up over here. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it was like, am I willing to sit in this discomfort, not be the smartest person in the room, being one of the dumbest people, if you want to use labels, in the room, because everyone else, except for two other people, have had pretty good exposure to Italian. And I'm just sitting there going, you're talking about first person, second person, and third person verbs. And I've now suddenly forgot any English that I know. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm just going to sit in this, even though I seriously want to cry. And he's like, so that's not ironic that I'm talking about pushing and leaning in, and I'm choosing to lean in because this is not going to take me out.
And this is interesting. I think you made a really important distinction as well. And that is, it's not just the push. It is the emotional attachment to the emotional, the piece that says, I'm not good at this. Or I'm right. Like if there's something, and I'll tell you that when if I'm not good at it, I don't really want to do it. like yoga. Like I tried yoga And I did it for a couple years. And then my husband goes to a class and he's like instant yoga guy. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, I don't really want to do yoga anymore. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I still can't do a downward dog to save my life. So we have our anxiety and our emotions come up when we're not feeling like we're in a zone that we can handle it and we feel capable. Right? It's like that overwhelm sits in, you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm the dumbest person here. And that I think is a different kind of lean in and push versus everything is just blocking my way.
Right.
Like, I think that's different. So
yeah. Oh man, I'm over here just like twittering, like not twittering. Okay, so many things. I was thinking about the push is like those little voices of fear, right? Because it's a very subtle distinction, a push and a lean. I mean, when I push, I tend to push with my head. So it's really more of a headbutt, like I'm leaning in with my head. And when I'm leaning in, as you're describing it, Angela, it's more my heart. It's that higher self, that my inner voice, right? That I'm being led into that. So there's that kind of distinction there. But it's interesting because I've been doing this Ayurvedic, it's like a cleanse, but it's basically just eating very, very simply and then incorporating a daily routine in the morning of breath work and dry brushing and then oiling your body. It's like working with the subtle energies and sort of resetting the body. But it's about building this discipline, which is really a devotion, right, to the self. And so one of the things that I was thinking about in what you were discussing is that the words self-esteem kept coming out. Because when I push, it's usually because I feel like I'm missing something or lacking in some way. But when I'm leaning into it, it's like it's an act of devotion. Like, I'm committed to the work that I'm doing. And it's also being able to listen to the subtle energies of what is coming up in that moment. Like, there might be a day, like today I had dental work done, right? So today is a day that I'm going to lean into what I can because I'm managing some pain, right? I mean, I'm dealing with that. Whereas tomorrow or yesterday, I was doing a lot of pushing to get something done. And so it's also just recognizing that sometimes it's a day-to-day fluctuation and a cyclical thing. And then, so this practice in the morning has really showed me that, I get up at 5:45 in the morning to do it. And I'm just like, some mornings, oh God, I just want to sleep. And then I think, no, this is about me building my strength so that I can lean in to the other parts of my day. And some of the things that I do are really painful. Like, it hurts to do them because there's so much tension in my neck. And I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do that one. And then I think, if I lean into this one and just do it for a minute instead of 3 minutes, how can that maybe shift? Like, it's the thing that I need to do to shift it. If I keep avoiding it, it'll never shift. But if I do it, just how can I do a little bit of it instead of beating myself up because I'm not doing the full 3 minutes or avoiding it altogether? And it's been such a beautiful practice. So I think anytime we can find something that we do, whether it's yoga or it's our work, or it's something that we're working with those subtle energies and being clear about, am I doing this because I'm building my self-esteem and I'm building my love and devotion to the work that I'm doing? Or am I doing it because I feel obligated, or I feel like I should, or because other people told me I'm supposed to? So those are the thoughts that are coming up for me as you were describing that.
Well, the final thing I'll say, and then we can move on to the next topic, is another thought that I've had with this is, because I teach a lot about ease and magic and working with the molecules of energy around in your business and money and all of it. And it's not about just strategy. It's the energy of everything. And we really, like, I call it my Harry Potter tools, And so what I've been noticing, however, is just like in any personal development group, way of thinking, you can override anything that's uncomfortable with the tools that you can also create with. So in Access Consciousness, you could POC your way out of anything. You could tap your way out of anything. You could NLP your way out of anything. You could coach your way out of anything. And so it's like, what is that difference of like just being willing to acknowledge that, yeah, this feels really hard, but you know, I'm more committed to know Italian and to go to one of my favorite places and be able to communicate. I'm more committed to that than the temporary discomfort of feeling stupid.
Right.
Like that's the difference, you know? And so it's like, you can use your own tools against you just to be about comfort. But I'm noticing like in my own life of where I may not be creating what I would like, it's because I've been really backing off of like, I just don't want to push myself because I'm afraid. But there's that 10% of like, no, I'm actually like, I'm more committed than I thought I was. Because when I fast forward my life a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, like this way of doing something is not in alignment with what I say I desire.
Right.
Like there's something out of integrity here. And so that's where it's like the push or the lean in or whatever you want to call it. But it's like, I'm committed to this. And what does commitment look like to me? It's like, I'm an unwavering stand for that. But I'm not going to push it to the point of bulldozing everything else out of my path or doing it at the expense of everything else that's important to me. So I think there's a balance with everyone. Just noticing like when we're committed to ease and magic, I'm noticing this thing and you know, around me of like, oh, the second it gets hard, people check out. Or they want to create 10 other things instead of finish their marketing plan that they already started. Or, you know, like it's much more fun to be a visionary, but when it's actually like you're building a business, you're going to have to market and sell some shit. Like otherwise, I don't know how the business and the money-making part is going to happen. Like there's some sort of thing there that happens. It's not just about ease and magic. It's yes, you can be authentic and have ease and magic in it. But there's going to be that time where you're going to butt up against something that is going to feel hard. It's going to feel uncomfortable. And that's the time to lean in and just allow yourself to be in it. And then you can decide, all right, am I going to push through it? Or is this actually the sign that it's not my path?
Right.
Anyway, that's my final. So
yeah. No, I love that. Love that. Yeah. I think it all comes down to that, like really a conscious choice.
Mm-hmm.
What are you actually choosing versus subconsciously choosing either just the push because that's what your operating system says to do, or spiritual bypass. Let's just skirt it all, right? And not deal actually with anything that's uncomfortable. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So Chris, let's open it up to you and your topic for tonight.
Yeah, you know, I'm working on this article and it's taken me years to write this stinking article. It's not taking me years. It's taken me years of discernment to really watch in the coaching industry. And as I said earlier, I used to be a psychotherapist. So I was really more in that, you know, the formal world of psychotherapy. I've been doing more of the coaching and consulting world for the last 7+ years. And really watching this whole thing, and it's cool how this all ties together. I'm excited to see what your topic, how this will all tie in too, Michelle, is, you know, who's really responsible for the results that we get. And, you know, similar to what Angela was saying is that, you know, I mean, okay, so bottom line, we are responsible for our results, okay? Because our coach or our therapist or our consultant, whoever, our friends, our spouse, I mean, they're not the ones who are putting food in our mouth. They're not the ones who are making the calls. They're not the ones who are doing the work, right? And so ultimately, it does come down to us. However, there is also something there, and I think that, and I'm interested to hear what people have to say about this, is that in the coaching industry, there's a lot of things where it's like, well, you signed a contract and so you're in and you don't get to, you know, back out. And I look at that and I there was a whole research study that we did using a specific thing. It's called motivational interviewing. And in motivational interviewing, we were working with people who are addicted. And I mean, I was working with street youth who were suicidal and drug addicted, right? Okay, so these were not easy people. And they didn't give a fuck about what I thought about them, right? I mean, they just wanted to get paid and have a warm place to sit for a couple hours while I did this work with them. And so, you can see there's an inherent resistance that's going to happen there. But what motivational interviewing said was that it's the resistance that comes up in the client is not only inherently in the client. It is in the dynamic and the relationship between the client and the interviewer. And so what I've just noticed is that in the coaching industry, so often we'll see people who will join a large program or they'll join a coaching program, and as soon as the resistance hits, or they just don't feel heard, or they don't. I mean, again, there's this huge article that I'm writing about this that talks about all the different things you need to know before you even join something, but to get the most results out of it. But it's like, what happens when you come to somebody, and I think we've all experienced this, maybe at least at some level, where you come up to your coach and you're like, this isn't working. And they're like, you signed a contract. But you're clear, like, it's not that I'm resisting you, it's that it's not a good fit. It's really not. And their defensiveness and not wanting to not get paid is actually making it worse rather than better. And so it's just calling to task this whole idea of there's a couple things. One is that I think as a therapist, I had to assess whether or not people were ready to change. And that's not necessarily trained in, some coaching programs, but there's a lot of people out there that don't have coaching background. I mean, they took like a couple weekend things, or they're like, oh my God, I just want to be a coach. And that's great, but there's a lot of background that goes into that. Or let's just say you're at a big event and everybody's like, oh my God, join this multi coaching program, but there's no real assessment. Is that person really ready to do the work in this group program? Are they going to get lost in a group program? Are they somebody who really needs more one-on-one work, right? But so anyway, this is something that I'm really taking to task. And instead of necessarily looking at the coaching industry and saying it's all wrong, because I don't really believe that. I think that there's value in having contracts. I think there's value in making that commitment. My question is, how much does the client really know what she or he is wanting and needing? And how do we become better consumers, or clients, if you will, so that we're really empowered to call out our coach and say, or this isn't what I'm realizing I need this actually, or I'm not ready to do this work because I need all this other stuff over here, and to just understand that. So I don't know if I really have an answer to that, but I just think it's something that I'd love to hear what other people have to say. So, Angela, I can see you nodding over there.
I know. I'm sitting. I feel like I'm in a room. I'm like, yep, seeing it. Yep.
So tell me, tell us, what are you thinking about this?
It's a really powerful conversation. And I go back to actually something that Michelle says is we don't create anything, we co-create it.
Yes, so true.
And I remember having a conversation, it was back in 2013, and it was about 3 months into a coaching contract. And I said no the first 2 times that the person approached me about joining. And I reluctantly said yes the third time. And I signed my name to a contract. Like, I 100% committed. And this was before I had the tools that I have now to really look at, like, oh my God, this is my resistance or fear, or I was just totally aware that this was actually not a fit for me. And so I bought into this belief or this energy of like, oh, it's just your fear talking. Like, if you don't push through it now, when are you going to do it? Like, are you going to let this always like haunt you? And I was like, well, no. And so I joined for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
And I 100% take accountability. And so about 3 months into the program, I said, this is not working. like, I really, really admire you and the work that you're doing, but something is off and I'm hoping that we can figure it out. And the response shocked me. And it was like, yeah, you're right. This isn't the fit for you, but you signed a contract. And even now, apparently I'm just like weepy tonight, but I just remember sitting there going, oh, so you're not taking any accountability. And that's when I changed my own practices in my own business, because I was like, I could take accountability, but what was happening is I was taking over accountability. And there was no accountability from the coach. And so it was like, so that got resolved. It's still something that pains me to just go, gosh, that could have been so much easier. It could have been actually a beautiful contribution of both of us, but we both walked away feeling like we've lost.
Yeah.
And so it was like that experience went, like, it showed me, like, where was I doing that? Because a contract's a contract, and like that's the jargon, and that's like, it's like, God, there's a lack of possibility. There's a lack of abundance in that kind of a mindset, I believe. Like, if you're really committed to abundance and co-creating magic, it's like, okay, well, let's ask what else is possible here. Like, what can we co-create? Mm-hmm. And so ironically, just last night, I adjusted my contract. So there is a line, and I call it an agreement, not a contract. I'm like, you know what, if at some point this is not working, then our job, our commitment to each other is that we proactively communicate about it and create a win-win.
Yeah.
And we will figure this out together. Yeah. And I just feel so happy about that agreement rather than the legal jargon bullshit. I'll call it bullshit that, I was modeling all my contracts after, that felt heavy, that was all about protecting me, but not about co-creating magic with someone.
Yes. It's the cover your ass mentality. But it's couched in, you're going to come up against resistance. So I'm going to hold you to this because because you cannot obviously take care of yourself. So I'm going to be the authority that holds you to. It's like, that's not co-create. That's just more of a medical model, actually. But it's couched in this way of, I'm empowering you to choose. It's like, when we see our shit, right? Like you saw, I made the choice from those little voices. I made the choice from that scared part of me. Mm-hmm. Okay, then now I'm going to unchoose it from that sacred part of me. That's truth. That in my mind. Mm-hmm. And that's truly looking at each other and going, wow, that if I'm the coach and I'm looking at you, Angela, and I'm saying, you know what, I'm really committed that you and you trust you. And if this is what it costs for you to get that, awesome. And guess what? If it's not a fit, I don't want to fucking work with you. And I don't want to keep getting money from you because we're done. It's done.
Amen.
That's how I feel about it. Michelle,
this is actually, it's a little enlightening because I'm so clear. Like, it's just, there's no energy with me around, if it's really not working for the both of us,
yeah,
we're done.
Done. Yeah.
And it's okay. Like, and I have in my contract, like, it's funny. I'm like, I should maybe tweak it, but I think it's never been challenged because I really would never hold anybody to something that they do not want to be here. Like, I don't want that energy affecting me, and I don't want it affecting my other clients. So, God bless, right? And send you on your way. So it never really occurred to me to even put that in writing. And I just augmented my contract a few months back when a private mentorship client joined, and she said, she goes, I'm sure it's fine. She goes, but I just want to, have it in here. She's like, what happens if something happens to you? Like, God forbid, you get sick, or I was like, oh, I should put that in there. Like, if I can't fulfill my duties, you get a refund. Right. So but it didn't even occur to me because, again, I was like, well, of course I would. So so my husband gets mad at me because I'm not very good at the legal stuff. We all just have an understanding.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way, Michelle. I really am. And it's interesting because it just comes down to, it's like there's a there's a transformation question and an ethics question. And it's something that just doesn't get discussed. It's sort of like, well, this is how you do it. And and this is hard for me to admit out loud because it felt so shitty. But this was early on in my career. And I had a client who, I think we were doing like 6 months or something like that. And we actually had done the bulk of the work, right? I mean, it was, we had done the bulk of it. And she was like, I can't pay you, but my coach was like, you need to hold her to that. And I worked with her and we got payments and all that, but I felt crappy about it the whole time because I was just like, this doesn't, and I was kind of holding that, I was towing the party line and it didn't feel right to me. And it still felt, and it's still kind of, I'm like, oh, I just hate even admitting that, It only took once. It wasn't that she wasn't a good fit. It was just like at some point she was just like, I can't, I can hardly pay for my daughter's school, and that where I was like, I'm a mom. I'm like, I fucking know what that is like, but it was just so like, if you don't hold her to it, then you're going to XYZ in your work with people. Right. And it was just like, oh my God, you're right. And it was this whole thing of like, wait a minute. And it was going against, in therapy, if somebody comes and says, this isn't working for me, I'm going to go elsewhere. You're like, okay, God bless you. Do you need a referral? Like you can't force somebody to stay. You can't, and legally, if they pay you in advance and they decide to quit, you have to pay them back. I mean, this is that was what I was raised on, if you will, in a totally different industry. And so it's just been something that I've really been looking at and exploring and questioning and being very careful that I assess when I'm working with somebody, are you going to be a good fit? I don't have people that come and go, this isn't a good fit, because it's a good fit, I use my assessment skills to do that. So anyway, that's.
Yeah, I think the beginning of actually knowing, and spending time with somebody, and I'm very, very clear about that. It is a partnership. It is absolutely a partnership, and we both have to feel good about it or it ain't going to fly. So that's in the front end, but you said something interesting about to hold you to it. And it's that contract, like hold you that contract. And what all of a sudden struck me, I was like, oh, I hold my clients to it, but it's not to the contract.
Yes.
It's to the actual shit they said they wanted to do.
Right.
Like I will push back because that's probably their way out. Like Angela, like it's getting uncomfortable or maybe it's getting hard or whatever. Like you can't just be like, it doesn't feel right, I'm out. No.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if it's really something that it's like, it is just not working.
Yeah.
And it's not working. And like I said, then it's co-create. I did that. I had a client where it's a long story, but she ended up halfway through joining another gal and they started to create something together. Well, that wasn't our original contract. I wasn't signing with both of them. I knew the woman and I would have never worked with her. So this to say that, like I wouldn't have done it. And sure enough, wasn't working. And she tried to just kind of back out. And I said, no. I said, let's co-create. What else needs to happen here? And sure enough, she needed support to actually deal with her now business partner.
Yeah.
So we restructured the program where, I was able to, so like, yeah, I just think that there is so many other ways that can do it. And we are holding them to something, but it's the energetic contract.
Yes.
Like really, that's what we're really holding them to for them, because that's what they wanted when they signed.
Exactly. And when we're scared, we forget that.
Yeah.
And that's our job, is to stay not scared. Right. When we just use a contract as the reason, then we have engaged in the scared conversation and not the sacred conversation. And it's, so.
Well, and that's the power of leaning in, right? Of like, because the other thing I noticed, and I think that we can all relate with this, is like by people being in our presence, shit starts changing.
Right.
Like, we just have that ability. Like, and I forget that. Like, when people come into my programs, divorces happen, shit goes down in relationships, because you suddenly see the stuff you're tolerating and what you say you want, and you finally have support to create that. Yeah, you bet some shit is going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
Shit comes up for me too. Like, I love when I have that energy of, like, I enroll a client, I'm like, time to up my game, because they're not going to let me have the hook. But I've got it. Like, I love when you say this, Michelle, in your trainings, like, I'm going to go first. I'm not going to ask you to do something that I'm not willing to walk through the fire first. And so there's that energy of, like, when we are in the world of, and the work of transformation, your shit will come up. And that difference of, like, oh, the contract isn't working or whatever. It's like, okay, I can see through that when I can really feel like, wow, you're scared.
Yeah.
So here's if you can do it, but I guarantee you can.
Exactly. So here's a thing that I do have in my contract, is that you can hit the pause button.
Mm-hmm.
Because just that, right? Like, and so there's, you're still your payments and, like, things are in, but you can just hit the pause button and extend then up to 3 months, like, your program at the end or whatever, because sometimes stuff comes up, and I don't want clients to feel like, they're missing out or they can't, and then you're split energy. And it's like, no, hit the pause, deal with the shit you got to deal with, and then let's get back if that's what you need.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
So it's because, stuff happens. So
Yeah.
cool. This is good stuff. And I want to get into the last topic. We are rolling right along here. So the last topic is mine, which is vulnerability and visibility. And how much do you share? So this came up. I just did a B365 speaker training, and I was going through this brand character diamond, where we look at our visibility. We look at, there's actually kind of points. We look at our visibility. We look at our valor, which is kind of like our moxie, like the stake in the ground, what I know for sure. Like, we look at that. And then we look at this other plane that is actually our vulnerability, and then our values, which is the things that we really hold dear and we hold sacred. And it's that plane that is equally as visible as the other plane that's more outwardly expressed, but that plane is energetically visible and not necessarily through our words or through our actions or whatever, right? And so it was, because here we are in speaker training, and we're talking about our story, like, and how much of this vulnerability do you actually share? And so I wanted to just kind of open that up, because I think that it's what people will struggle with a lot, right? Is like, okay, I'm supposed to be transparent, or I'm supposed to share my struggles, but a lot of times we're like, I don't know, what struggle should I share? And it's kind of like we go into our head about this thing. And so what I kind of challenged people to think about is, what's the thing you don't want people to know? Because that is the beach ball. Remember, and I know I've talked about this with shadow work. It's the beach ball. I feel like I see me in video here. It's the beach ball analogy, where if we're constantly trying to hold something down, it's expending so much energy. And this is the concept of visibility and energetic visibility, is that people can kind of see that you're hiding something. So they don't know what you're hiding, but they know you're hiding. That creates distrust and doubt. So what we want to do is we don't have to throw the beach ball in people's faces. We don't have to start launching it at people like, I'm this, or, whatever. But we want to just allow it to rise and sit there. And so we're not shoving, right? And so it was really cool, because people in the 3-day, were really vulnerable with just different things of, I don't want people to feel like I'm not successful. I don't want people to feel, or I don't want people to think that. I don't want people to, have this idea. And it's because they're not feeling as successful, right? And so there's lots of things that we want to hide, because we might have, we might launch a program and nobody signs up, and we're like, oh my God, I don't want anyone to know that no one signed up. Right. Like, there's just things that we might want to hide. And so I just challenge people to kind of start thinking about that. Like, what is the thing that you don't necessarily want people to know, but how can you share it in a way, like I said, you're not launching in people's faces, but you share it in a way that just kind of allows it to come up. And a lot of times it's more about demonstrating than telling. So when I first did my own brand character diamond, I looked at that, my vulnerability piece. And one of the things at the time, and this was like kind of my beach ball, I don't really have that anymore. I kind of let it be, but is that I'm really sensitive. Like I'm really emotionally sensitive. And I don't give that impression like when you first meet me, right? I'm funny. This is my visibility, my upper area. But I'm very sensitive. And I did not want people to know that because, I think subconsciously maybe people could take advantage or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. But when I started to recognize that that was actually a power of mine, I could actually start to just let that beach ball up and actually start allowing myself to cry in public, cry on stage when something is truly happening. Like allow yourself to actually be that versus have to go, I'm really sensitive. Mm. Like I don't have to tell you. Mm-hmm. So that's a difference of kind of how to know, how much to share in a sense. Like how can you just let it up? So I wanted to open it up to either of you and both of you actually, and just like, what are your thoughts around it? And what does this bring up with like, your own vulnerability and how this feels in business?
Chris, you want to go for it?
No, I don't.
Okay, I'll go for it.
No, I'm like thinking, I'm processing, I'm feeling into it. I'm not done feeling into it yet.
I have a couple thoughts just off the top. I remember one of my clients years ago was a professional storyteller, and she was sharing a really big contribution with the group I was leading at the time. She said, as a storyteller, you can share a story, but if your audience feels like they need to come in and rescue you, mm-hmm. then that's actually not sharing a story. That is victimizing your circumstances. And she probably used different words than that, but that has always rung true. Like I will remember that forever. And so that's where I always gauge, like, is there part of me that hasn't healed from whatever I'm about to share? So there's an energy of shame or an apology. And actually I did a session with Michelle this last week to dial in some things on my signature speech. And I said, should I joke about my braces that I feel like a 14-year-old spitty like teenager or like when I'm on stage in front of 200 people? Or do I just pretend they're not there? Or like, how do I embody this? And it was that energy of like, well, are you sharing a joke because you're apologizing? Or like there are certain words when I say them, I'm like, I feel like I just spit, and I'm much more derogatory and judgmental of myself because the feedback I get, they're like, oh, you have braces? I didn't even know. And so it was like there's that kind of an energy. But I've noticed when I first started sharing about like the first event that I hosted where I lost 40 grand, it was very challenging. Like that's like saying it lightly. But when I finally started sharing that, but from a place of here's what I learned, that's when my business started growing. Like it felt like it grew overnight because it's like, oh, people could see I'm relatable. I'm freaking real. Like I was truthful about here are the mistakes that I made. I will never make them again. And you're welcome. Like I'm teaching you so you can avoid that. But it wasn't from a place of shame. It wasn't from a place of apologizing. So I think if the energy in which you're sharing is great, like, or, great thing to look at. The other thing of like knowing like how much to share, I think about as coaches, part of our job is to give feedback to people. So from like that perspective of how much can this person receive? Mm-hmm. Like, can they receive what I'm even hearing now? And at some point there's a fine line of like, I cannot make that decision for them, because I've got to be honest here. And I had a conversation, it was months ago, with someone of like, you're not going to want to hear this, but here's what's going on. And I have got to say this as your coach. And guess what? I'm here to hold space for you because I know this is not what you want to hear. I know that, and I've got your back. Like, I'm with you in this, but we have got to take a look at this. Mm-hmm. And it was not comfortable. Even now I feel myself get anxious about it, because I was like for days going, oh shit. Like, but I am an unwavering stand for someone's potential.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so anyway, so I think there are a couple angles with that. So
yeah, and I love that unwavering stance for your potential. And I think it's, I think it's cool when we have an unwavering stance for our own potential as well, right? And so when we ask that question of, or ask the question when you're thinking about a story or thinking about something that you're hiding, is why are you hiding it?
Mm-hmm.
And also, why are you sharing it? Right? Because that's then tapping into the energy behind it.
Yeah, totally. I love the beach ball analogy. I've used that one for a long time myself. And it's like if it's holding it down, it's either going to smack you in the face or the chin when you least expect it. Or I love then, like you throw it at somebody but there's also another image I had when we're speaking, on a stage is, are we handing and this is kind of that whole take care of me. Are we handing the ball to the audience saying, can you hold this for me? Because it's just too big for me to handle. Or can you hold this for me so that not that I don't have to, but that it's like, you hold this. I don't really have to feel anything. I don't really have to deal with it, but there's a disconnect that happens. And it looks very subtle. Like you're not throwing it in their face, but you're like handing, and that's that piece of, are you still in it? Because if you're still in it, then that's where then you're not able to be cleanly vulnerable. There's a difference between like a dirty vulnerable and a clean vulnerable, right? Like, are you slutty vulnerable? Are you, like, I'm here and I'm in integrity, but I don't need you to pay me. I don't need you to do anything for, I don't need you to pinch my ass after. Like, you don't, I know I'm so crass, but you know what I mean? There's just not a dirtiness to it that feels so like, ooh, this is it. It's my experience and I'm okay with it. I'm good. And I think it's really important. And that being able to discern that is really fascinating. And something you were saying earlier, I know is a little bit different, but you said the word values, which I think is really important. And I was talking to Angela about this like a week ago or something. And I was saying that when I started looking at what do I believe, right? Like we come up with these ideas about like, what do I stand for? What's my branding? What do I believe? Well, beliefs are just constructs. I mean, beliefs are things that can change. And certainly we can change those beliefs at the drop of a hat. I mean, you can go Google something right now. There's probably people on the, listening in right now who may be, oh my God, I never thought about it that way. I'm going to change the way I think about things. I'm going to change my belief. So they're very nebulous. And they're these balls that we tend to go, oh, I got to hold on to this because it's a belief. But if we do look at our values and we say, this is what I value, my beliefs about what I value might change. They might change day to day about how I want to talk about that value based on more information that I have. But my value doesn't, the values that I have don't change. And those are things that can feel very vulnerable to share. And yet, if we are clear what they are and we're clear in the energy of them, we don't have to justify them. And we usually try to justify something with our beliefs. And that's what I mean. Like that's something that I've been playing with. So I don't know if that makes a difference too, but.
Yeah, it's what I find is that when people are truly hiding, it completely affects their ability to be fully authentic and be actually magnetic. Right. And that's it's just, I feel like I'm saying that's the facts when, it's not, but right. It's like, there is just this truth of that when you're hiding. So I encourage people to be more vulnerable, even just through sharing or, appropriately sharing. Like you don't have to, we're not always talking about, from stage. That was the example I gave because that's where I, just taught this recently, but, through small groups or whatever it might be, but to actually start kind of coming clean with what's going on with you just allows that beach ball to come up and be relaxed. Because now you actually are in conscious choice of it, where until it gets to that place, unfortunately, it has a tendency to maneuver without our control or extreme control, and then we slip and it goes, punches you in the face.
Yeah.
So interesting stuff here for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I love what Kimberly. Kimberly saying, and then Diana. It's like, are you sharing to get acknowledgement or agreement?
Right.
And there's that energy of like, I'm going to share this, and like secretly, what I'm hoping is like, please still like me.
Yes.
Please don't judge me the way that I've been judging the hell out of myself. Like,
yes,
sharing from that energy to get approval. And I think the flip side of this is true also of like, you can, back to when I taught a visibility course with my head coach, Lisa, this came up on one of our calls of like, the posts on Facebook, like, I'm about to get really vulnerable. And then they share something and you're like, and no judgment, but like, really, that's vulnerable? Like, oh, okay. I get that it took courage for that. But if you have to preface it with like, okay, I'm about to get really vulnerable. It's like, well, can you just be that? Can you actually just share that? Because that's a way of apologizing. Like, please still like me, or, whatever that kind of motivator behind it is. Like, what if you just shared what you're sharing, but look at the energy and the intention behind it? And the other side can go like, I actually deleted a video and a post that I did last week. I'm like, this is not actually, I'm too ranty. I'm like, there's something there for me. This was not something to share. And I know, Chris, like we talked about a political post that you did. I'm sorry, I'm calling you out, but it's like, it's like you really like look at that. And I think the bottom line for me is when I think about like, should I share this story? Should I post this? I go to the question of, will this create more? Will this create more possibility and expansion, or is this going to create more judgment, more constriction, more shame? And so does this create more of what I say I want in the world?
Right.
And you'll get sometimes a very subtle energetic difference, but then it's like, oh, this is just for me to note or to post or to think about or to write in my journal, but this is not maybe the Facebook post. Not yet anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And absolutely. I mean, that, especially with, oh my gosh. And I'm actually sitting the same thing with the political aspect, pondering my own process with all of that. And it does keep coming back to, why are you hiding it, right? Or are you not sharing? Or why are you sharing? And getting really clear about the intention behind it, because that's where we have the power, and everything else is, it's like throwing confetti in the wind, right? We really don't have any control over it.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. But I think we've all done that, Kimberly, like, oh yeah, like me. I mean, I know I have. I know that's something I struggle with. It's so, it's just as a speaker, putting things out there, and I always know as soon as I say something like that, I'm like, ugh, that was totally that feeling, we just know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, we'll close out. Let's open, if you can, Angela, if you want to, we're going to view you. We're going to make you visible if you're open to that. We'd love to just see your faces and give a good cheers out. And again, we actually all, like I said, hers is on the way. So hers is coming soon. But we actually have a free opt-in for you guys on our website, which is bizhappyhour.com. Correct? Keep looking at Angela.
Yes, /connect.
/connect is the page that it's on. Yes. And you'll also get to read, if you haven't gone there yet, get to read our unbios. I just reread them and they're freaking hilarious.
I did too today. Yeah. You can read our most embarrassing moments.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so check out the website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a way to
Yep, everyone is unmuted. So if you want to say hi, bye, whatever you'd like. If you want to turn your video on so we can see you, we can do that too. Hi, Diana. So no pressure. Hi, Cindy. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys. Yeah, but thanks for joining us. Like we were talking earlier, and I mentioned at the very beginning of, I'm looking at all these past episodes. We started this in February of 2016. It's like, you know what? We really we just want to bring more awareness and community around the conversation of the shit that really happens in business. This is the shit that really happens in business. It's not about, here's my marketing strategy and I'm going to be all this and that and sing a dance. It's this is the stuff that really makes us either move forward or hold us back. And so thanks for joining us in the conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Salud.
Cheers. We'll see you next month. Definitely.
Second Wednesday of the month. Mark your calendars. Second Wednesday of every month.
Yes.
Awesome.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.